Edward Ross and Dan Allen met on a building site and had a long, comfortable career ahead of them as well-paid carpenters. Then something terrible happened, which changed the course of both their lives. It also led to the creation of a business that in its third year will turn over close to $2 million. It's a very motivating episode 523 of the 11-year-old award-winning Small Business Big Marketing podcast.
Well, I said, welcome to a small business marketing show where successful small business owners share their souls to take your marketing straight to the lead. Now, here's your host, Mr. Tim Reid.
And welcome back to your weekly dose of compassionate marketing. I'm your host, Timbo Reid. You, infinitely more importantly, are a motivated business owner because you listen to this podcast and you are ready to crank out some great marketing to build that beautiful, beautiful business of yours into the empire it absolutely deserves to be. Big episode today. We meet the founders of workwear clothing brand TradeMutt, which was born out of an incredibly sad story. This week's Monster Prize Draw winner used an idea from this podcast to hook an ASX-listed company and another lead worth over $1 million to them. Plus, I let you in on next week's guest, whose third-generation chocolate shop is growing thanks to some very state-of-the-art marketing. As per usual, team, there is marketing GOLD dripping from the ceiling over here at Small Business Big Marketing's HQ. So let's get stuck right in.
Hi Tim, Louisa from Allied Active here. Just wanted to reach out and give you a big thank you for featuring my little business on your recent episode. I wanted to let you know that since the episode, my website traffic has tripled, if not more, and I attribute that directly to your podcast. So thank you. Marketing works, and I appreciate the gift of exposure. Louisa from Allied Active.
There's the quote of the century. Marketing works. Damn right it does. And what about that increase in website traffic? I love it. Louisa, thank you again for reaching out, for listening to the show and for being an implementer. That's awesome to get that feedback. Anyone else, just give us a buzz. 0480 015 150. Leave me a message. Maybe you got a question, maybe a comment. Maybe you want to be constructively critical. Just go for it, and I might just play it on air. Now, a big thank you to long-time listener Arne Betteridge of Signature Clothing, who introduced me to today's guests, Ed Ross and Dan Allen, who met on a building site in 2014. Two young tradies starting what they thought was going to be a lucrative career in carpentry. Tradie, any kind of tradie. It's a lucrative career these days. Money for jam. Now, 2 years on, that dream came to a grinding halt when Dan received news that one of his best mates had taken his life. This, of course, led to the boys questioning everything. What are we doing? Are we really doing what we love? How can we put an end to young males suiciding? Fast forward to 2016 and TradeMutt was launched, a social enterprise Aussie workwear brand aimed at making tradies look and feel good at work whilst reducing the rate of male suicide in Australia. Now, basically, TradeMutt makes loud and vibrant high-vis workwear, even louder, that include a bunch of crazy designs that act as a conversation starters around mental health. In fact, on the back of every TradeMutt top is the line, and I quote, "This is a conversation starter." Now, in 2020, the business will turn over close to $2 million, employs 8 full-time staff, and will have 1,000 stock-keeping units by Christmas this year. Now, as is always the case, if discussions around mental health or suicide trigger something within you, then maybe listen to another episode. And please be sure to reach out to a friend if that is the case. I started off by asking the boys to describe the conversation that led to leaving their jobs and starting TradeMutt.
Well, gee whiz. Where do we start? So I'm from Central West Queensland. Did some boarding school here in Brizzy and then moved away for a few years. And after a few events that took place in my life, I decided to move back to Brizzy and it was sort of a weird time. I was doing some labouring and stuff for some builders, and this apprenticeship sort of popped up out of nowhere, and sort of went to just to do a couple of days' work for this bloke and get a bit of cash, and ended up starting the same day for this builder as Dan did, and sort of the rest was history. Sort of became best mates on site through some hard toil and labour.
Yeah, so obviously that was the voice of Ed there. So Dan here, I've got my side of the story was, I moved up to Brisbane from Sydney to work for a builder for 2 weeks. That was kind of 10 years ago. And that move, what I went up for that 2 week period, it was kind of a real life-changing moment, I suppose, for me, because it meant that I formed a whole bunch of new relationships that I wouldn't have otherwise opened myself up to. And one of those relationships was, my mate who became, quite like a brother to me, whose name was also Dan. Formed a really formidable, mateship, and I became a bit of a mentor to him, and he sort of wanted to become a carpenter, sort of inspired by me. So sort of all the way through our mateship, was always kind of trying to look out to get Dan a mature age apprenticeship and all that sort of stuff. And as Ed said, we met on a building site in 2014. And in 2015, when Ed and I were working on a job together, I remember it was a Thursday at a suburb of Brisbane, and got a call from my mate Dan, who I was up on top of a ladder, and Dan had called me and said, screaming through the phone, jumping for joy, mate, you're never going to believe it. I've nailed a mature age apprenticeship. I finally scored one. This is epic. Ed could hear him coming through the phone. Ed was standing on the ground passing me timber.
No, matrix sheets.
And matrix sheets. And so that was a Thursday. Life couldn't have been better. It was, everything was looking up. Everything was great. And Sunday morning, 3 days later, I woke up to a call from another one of my mates giving me the news that Dan had tragically taken his life the night before in Brisbane. And that was my first experience with suicide. That was both of our first experiences with suicide, and obviously a life-defining, life-changing moment. Obviously very traumatic and tragic to deal with, but in that sort of time following that event, we sort of taking a deep dive into this mental health space, and as you do, questioning everything, and it became just so obvious how much of a lack of understanding and education there is around mental health in this country, what it actually means. And I suppose in line with that, it's blokes who really struggle with opening up and all that sort of stuff, and being couple tradies in a male-dominated industry, we sort of really looking deeply into it in that sector. I mean, we had an idea previous to this about creating some workwear. We thought it'd be great to wear something different to work every day, because we were always wearing khaki and just your standard high-vis. And after that event in 2015, we actually started to look into this idea of making some work shirts. And given everything that had happened, we learnt about social enterprise and using profit for purpose, and we started to form these two ideas together. And we thought, well, wouldn't it be awesome if we could actually create these work shirts and then use the event of losing my mate to suicide as a positive thing, and try to take a bit more of a lighthearted and a fun approach to the mental health space, in an effort to make it a bit more relatable and approachable for everyone, for all Australians, but particularly blokes. And so that was it. It's kind of, when you say tell us about the conversation that led to it, it's kind of a series of just crazy events.
A long, winded journey through a lot of different interactions and meeting a lot of different people.
Yeah.
Were you blokes looking for an out of carpentry, out of building?
Always looking for different things. I mean, after spending a week blackjacking, block walls in 45-degree heat in Queensland, you dream of doing anything but what you are doing. But it was just sort of, we'd always had different ideas. I mean, probably the entrepreneurial spirit sort of burns in both of us.
What goes on building sites in particular that, because men aren't awesome at talking, and men aren't particularly awesome at talking about their mental well-being. You hear stories, and I haven't been on many building sites. I don't think I've been on one, but you hear stories of bullying, and it's where men are men and sheep are scared and all that kind of stuff. What actually happens?
Oh, it's probably just a really, because it is so male-dominated, there's probably this understanding of like a harder exterior, tough blokes, work hard, you get out of bed early in the morning, you're on site, you work from, daylight till dawn, you don't complain, you hook in, you don't, put push away from hard work, and it's really, time is money. That's the whole thing with, the trade industry. It's time is money.
So it's a tough environment. So here you are, you two blokes are working on it. A terrible thing happens to your best mate, Dan, who also happens to be called Dan. You've got some kind of thinking to do around mental health because it's brought it to the fore for both of you. You've both wanted to start another business. You're both thinking that, the gear you're wearing to work's no good. So enters TradeMutt. Why the name TradeMutt? And explain what it is you're selling, because I was going to try to, but you're going to do it infinitely better.
Well, the irony is we already had the logo. We had to reverse engineer the name from the logo. So my godfather had a building construction business in Toowoomba, and he had a red cattle dog called Cody who got in a fight with a cat one night, and her ear went limp. So he sketched it, and that was his logo. And we just loved it and said, mate, can we use it? He said, well, yeah, I can dust out the business cards and get someone to sketch it up and get it going. So yeah, we trademarked that, and then needed to have something with mutt and trade, and that was sort of pretty much the only URL left. But it works perfectly because it's trades, it's what we're involved in, and then mutt's obviously companionship, mateship, and loyalty. So yeah, it's been really good.
And we work like dogs.
Yeah. Yeah.
So explain what you're selling.
Yeah, so it's a wide variety of workwear, PPE workwear for the blue collar industry. So we've got PPE,
personal protective equipment.
Yeah.
There we go.
There you go, yeah. And so basically we've got some high-vis garments, like day-night accredited, so you can get them on, high-risk commercial jobs and into mine sites. And we've also got a line of just standard workwear as well for your residential tradies who don't need high-vis compliant garments.
Geez, Ed, standard is your product, mate, is anything but standard. I'd lose that from your lexicon. I'm looking at your website, albeit this is an audio medium, so we have to work hard here to kind of get across exactly what your products look like. In fact, I'm really struggling. Like, how would you describe the patterns that you have added to your high vis gear, your caps, your boot garters?
Well, Scott Kilmartin had us on Ticker TV the other day, and he described it as a Mambo-inspired, colour thrashing. It's just like we just mashed all this stuff together. Dan and I don't have a design bone in our body, can barely use the laptops that we operate on a daily basis. So
scary.
I mean, we're just lucky enough to come across some really cool designers that could help us out. The first line was obviously the ironic camouflage. So there's nothing camouflaged about it. So that worked perfectly for our narrative of, making an invisible issue impossible to ignore. And the latest design that we've got, the stained glass collection, is just sort of a compilation of various different squiggly lines and shapes with a variety of different colours thrown together.
How do you go? You two, you're both tradies. You've got no experience running a business. How you haven't come from a fashion background or the rag trade, as they call it. How do you go about starting a business like this? You've got to come up with styles, designs, fabrics, manufacturing. You've got to finance it. How does this happen?
You basically just start right from the start. So, obviously our, one mantra that we've always sort of focused on is minimum viable product. What's the minimum we've got to do here to get into the market? What are we trying to create? So we want to create a work shirt that's designed to start conversations. I'm
just going to pull you up there. Because I am interested. Minimum viable product is a term bandied around a lot, MVP. It came from a book called The Lean Startup, which was written by a Harvard professor. How do you know about MVP? Are you avid readers?
How do we know about it?
I am now. No, well, how we came about, the journey of starting this business was obviously, Dan and I were just thrashing ourselves, working 7 days a week. And then we were working for a builder full time, but we're also doing, afternoon cash jobs where we'd finish at, 10, 11 o'clock some nights. And then we were working both days on a weekend and working for months on end. Like, we saved up a grand total of $32,000 in cash and decided to invest that completely into our startup idea. So that's how we funded it. And then we were really lucky just through our ability of asking for help. We are just so open-minded in, finding the best people around in their certain fields to help us progress through, just take all the ego and the bullshit out of it and, put our hand up and say, we need people to help us with this. We're fortunate enough, we're actually renovating a graphic designer's house in Albion here in Brizzy, and we were wearing our samples to work and he's asking us what it is, and we're like, oh, this is a business idea we've got. He's like, oh, cool, have you got a website? We're like, no. He's like, oh, well, I can help with that. And, one thing led to another. And, the MVP stuff, we did a startup incubator with Impact Lab in Spring Hill in Brizzy here, and yeah, just learnt those sorts of terms like minimum viable product, which was great because it's sort of you can get caught with the laser beam and chase it around the room, but you've really got to stay sort of laser focused on what you're trying to achieve and get a product to market as quickly as possible.
I like that, Ed. Mind if I use that laser beam analogy going forward?
Mate, go hard.
Thank you, mate. I'm just removing all ego. I'm just asking for help. I need some new lines.
It's beautiful.
So really, in answering the question of how you get TradeMutt to market without any business experience is one step at a time. You got 32 grand in the bank. You need a bit of product. You need a design. What made you think, and I think it is a good idea, the minute I saw it, I thought, it's disruptive, it's needed, because a lot of you blokes are either wearing high-vis yellow or high-vis orange. You've gone and said, well, hang on, why not add a bit of fashion to it? What made you think, though, that it was going to work? Had you tested it? Because when you say to your mates, hey, what do you reckon about this? They're going to go, oh, yeah, that's not a bad idea.
No, they all thought we were mad. They all thought we were mad.
They all laughed at us, a fair bit. It all kind of, I mean, if you tell someone that idea, we're going to make work shirts to get people talking about mental health. Like, it's a pretty far-fetched idea until someone does it, obviously. But what made us think we could make it work? I don't know, just sheer confidence, sheer belief in the fact that something needed to be done in this space, and also confidence in the fact that the workwear industry hasn't been, shaken up in forever. So to the point where we're kind of sitting there going, well, why hasn't anyone else done this? Like,
we thought it might not be able to be done due to the fact it not being done, like why aren't people doing this? Not just from the narrative that we're trying to create and, the impact we're trying to make in the, social impact space, but why aren't people just making different variety of workwear? We couldn't really work that out. Did
you work it out?
Well, we still haven't, and we thought copycats would be the first thing that happened, but there's nothing coming into the market, which is really surprising. Obviously we're happy that there isn't anything, but we've been able to build a pretty large brand with a lot of goodwill now that people see a strange looking work shirt and instantly know what it stands for. It's
early days, boys, and I mean again, I don't go looking on work sites. I haven't seen any TradeMutt gear out there, and I reckon if I saw it, I probably would look twice. Is one of the barriers, and you're doing okay. I mean, you're already, the business is nicely established. Do you think a barrier to entry is the fact that blokes, and to a lesser extent women, although I think women are going to enjoy your product more, blokes are saying to themselves, I'm going to look like a dickhead if I wear a stained glass design high-vis shirt. Is that a problem?
Well, no. I mean, yeah, sort of. So what we found is it's a real pack mentality. As soon as someone wears one of these things, and then
it's a flow-on effect.
They do exactly what they say they do. Like, if someone rocks up to site wearing one of these things, they start the conversation. We can guarantee that they will start that conversation. As soon as that conversation sparks up about mental health, everyone's face changes. That piss-taking attitude just drops straight out of that conversation, because everyone has a story or a connection to that topic, and it is a serious topic, So, once you take the sting out of that, it's kind of something that all sorts of people want to get on board with, from young whippersnappers who like wearing Larry stuff to, older folk who would never wear anything Larry, but, can understand the cause and really resonate with, with the whole mental health thing. So it's been a really interesting dynamic to watch how people receive and then get on board with this. It's crazy.
Is there a strategy that you have to encourage the pack mentality? Like, for example, I'm thinking on a large building site, I'm not talking about a residential home, but maybe an office or a larger building site, there's going to be a social influencer, and I use quotes here, but that bloke or that woman who is looked to because they're the cool one or the tough one or for whatever reason. Do you have a strategy for getting to them, or not yet?
We kind of tripped and fell into this perfect thing where there's always an outlier. There's always someone who will kind of see it and they'll be the first one to wear it to site. But then they're starting conversations at a peer-to-peer level. They're not wearing it to site and saying to the manager, hey, look at me, look at this shirt, we should get them for everyone. They're having these conversations at that peer-to-peer level with their colleagues, and then suddenly the groundswell is from the ground up.
Yeah, so rather than top down.
It's all these other co-workers on site who are like, oh, this is cool, maybe we should all get one. And then you've got this pack of workers who sort of go up higher and say, hey, we all want to do this. And then, of course, you're not having a manager or site manager or a boss saying, I need you to wear these so that we all talk about mental health. It's more about, hey, we all want to do this. And, of course, most of the time, employers are like, well, this is awesome. We know how important mental health is. more than happy to get on board with this if this is something you guys want to do. And then all of a sudden, you've already built that camaraderie around the topic from the ground up approach.
There are two ways your apparel creates a discussion around mental health. There's 4 letters on the pocket of every TradeMutt shirt. I'm going to get you to explain that. And on the back, you have a line, "This is a conversation starter," on the back of all your tops. Just tell us about how those two ideas came about and how they work to get the conversation started.
Yeah, well, for us, like everything that we produce in all of our garments, we really want to allow the consumer to connect with the story. It's more than just, hey, put this on, let's talk about it. We've put a whole lot of different features on the shirt that have deeper meaning, that allow people to ask further questions and really sort of dive in a little bit deeper.
What are they?
Well, so we've got YNWA, as you mentioned, on that right-hand pocket. So my mate Dan, who took his life, was a diehard Liverpool supporter. Absolutely lived and breathed the Liverpool Football Club. He would have been absolutely stoked to see them lift that trophy earlier this year. But so that's a tribute to him. So "You'll Never Walk Alone" is the song that Liverpool sing to the Liverpool fans sing to their team before every game. So it's a tribute to him, but also a really positive message around the mental health movement, that anyone wearing one of these shirts instantly becomes part of a community, and they will never walk alone. And then, of course, as you said, inscribed across the back is the logo, "This is a conversation starter." So if it's not blatantly obvious by the bold prints and the Larry designs, it's also written like an instruction manual across the back. And we get the stories that people will be standing behind someone in a shopping centre. They'll see that "This is a conversation starter" across the back, and the opening line is, geez, mate, it really is a conversation starter.
Away you go.
So you're off. So and of course, just based on the success that we've had with TradeMutt, "This is a conversation starter," we've also established our own not-for-profit, or the TAX Foundation, which is the acronym for that. So it's grown and evolved nicely.
You must have a couple of stories about how conversations have led to someone's mental health being improved or addressed?
Oh, yeah. I mean, frequently, I suppose. There's one that sort of stands out for me. It was about 12 months ago. There was a bloke that rang us up and said that he'd lost his wife to cancer, and he had a young boy at that time, and then obviously it's about 6 or 7 years later, and he said he'd never really spoken to his son, and his son had never really spoken to him about the loss of his mother and his wife, etc. And his son walked through the door one day with one of our shirts on, and obviously the conversation started, and he said, we sat down for about 2 hours and just let it all out, just because of this bloody shirt, and I, it was crazy, like, to think that just a bit of cotton dyed differently with a message behind it was able to create something so important to this family. So it's crazy. We get them all the time.
You got a story, Dan?
Oh, mate, I'll probably never forget the day that a fella by the name of Brad walked into our old office. Big Maori bloke, big tough, Kiwi. And he's come in with his heavy accent, which just sounds so bloody beautiful. And I don't know, there's something about that accent that I just like. But he came in to buy some shirts, and I went downstairs and attended to him, and he started to open up to me. He started to say, he was stammering over the words about how much this mental health stuff meant to him. And he went on to tell me how his only son had tragically taken his life just a year earlier, 18-year-old young kid who just graduated from school. And you don't ever forget seeing that look in a parent's eyes when they're sort of standing there with tears rolling down their cheeks, saying, "Why did this have to happen to me?" And that, I'll never forget that. And that guy, Brad, he pops into our office, I'd say once a month. He's popped into our office once a month ever since then. He just loves coming in. He loves TradeMutt. It's really empowered him. It's helped him a lot. It's helped him talk a lot about it with his mates, but it's really helped him deal with what's happened in his life. And so whenever he walks into our office, no matter what I'm doing, I'll drop everything and give him all the time that he needs.
That's brilliant.
Because, to be able to positively impact one person like that. And I mean, he's hilarious. Like, he's such a good guy because he says, he'll come home and his wife, he wears TradeMutt every day. His wife's washed all his TradeMutt shirts, and they're hanging out on the line, and he'll run out on the line and he'll take them all off because he doesn't want them to get sun damaged. He doesn't want them to fade. So he's like, or stolen. He thinks they'll get nicked. But it's it's a simple conversation in a story like that kind of is
great stories, fellas. Well, they must make you feel, a great reminder of why you're doing what you're doing. Let's get back to the business of creating TradeMutt. You got a couple of hundred SKUs across men's and women's product lines. Is that right?
Yeah.
And then you got
expanding rapidly, sort of over the next
3
to 4 weeks. So so we put together sort of a scale up document a couple of months ago, sort of how we could take our business from where we are, sort of to where we want to take it over the next 12 months. And, there's about 8 recommendations we put together. And one of those is obviously, rapidly expanding our product line for our existing customer base, just due to the hunger that they have for our product and our brand. It was sort of, it was actually inspired by that Michael Masterson, Ready, Fire, Aim book. And I just took so much out of that and jotted this scale up document together, and that's obviously one of the main parts is just expanding our product line.
I think in your notes you said you were scaling up to possibly close to 1,000 SKUs over the coming 12 months. Do you run the risk of too much choice leads to confusion, therefore I'm not going to buy anything?
No, I think it's the interesting thing is that it's low numbers of new stock that's coming in beholding a foundation, if that makes sense. So we've got foundation stock that we'll always have on hand, but then there's shorter runs and shorter availability on other products that come through on a 3-monthly cycle. So we just want the ability of, bringing out some new stuff for our hungry customer base and it being able to sell out on a quarterly basis, but then also be able to maintain the high-vis foundation work prints that we've got, so people can always buy the things that they love the most.
So do you do some things like limited edition, create a bit of scarcity around that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, smart. I imagine there's probably a couple of TradeMutt collectors out there, are there?
There is a lot, actually, and they're furious when they miss out. So, there was a lady that missed out on a size 14 faff, and, it was sort of like she was so angry that we'd run out and she couldn't get it, but, it was literally we couldn't do anything for her. It was a nightmare.
That's amazing. You got to love someone who collects your product.
Yeah.
You are also in a great position for licensing. Had an episode on licensing. We called it invisible marketing a few months ago. Again, you could probably license up again with NRL clubs, AFL clubs. I mean, I don't imagine it being cheap, but the ideas are endless, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. It's sort of that's probably why. The analogy of the cat and the laser pointer before. I mean, when we first launched, there was just people, and it continues to this day. People come at us from 1,000 different angles of stuff we should be making and areas we should be producing product and et cetera, et cetera. But we've got to stay really focused on what we're good at, and what we're good at is producing really unique products that have a powerful message behind it, and we're really good at marketing those products. We've just got to be able to continue to grow off of that. So obviously the main market we're in now is workwear and the blue collar industry. But once we can nail that and get a sizable market share over the next 12, 18, 24 months, well then we can start to look in other verticals and start to impact other streams of workwear.
You're selling online via an e-commerce store. How else? You're wholesaling?
Well, we were wholesaling, but we've basically pulled that back due to the fact we can't keep up with our own online, B2C demand, and we're sort of working at the moment with like an exclusive play with a larger B2B distributor, so they can manage the larger commercial, mining sectors, and we can maintain our online presence and continue the direct to customer market. Like
one of those safety wear franchise kind of setups.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so we're getting hit up all the time from them, so it's sort of finding the right one that fits our moral compass and our message, and we can work with them to get more product out into the market.
Oh, I like that. So your moral, I was going to say, if you're getting hit up all the time by people wanting to stock or do something for you, your criteria is one of a moral compass. Tell us a bit more about that.
Well, what we've built here is so much more powerful than just a work shirt. And really, we're building a brand, and the brand is so multifaceted at the moment. The workwear is just one small part of it as we evolve. And so for us as a social enterprise, we have to consider who our aligned partners are, what their ethos is, what they stand for. Is it a good fit? We need to really be able to control the narrative and the messaging here, because the last thing that we ever want is just to see a colourful shirt hanging up in a shop, and for someone to be like, what's that? And then for someone to be like, it's a mental health shirt. You know what I mean? Like, that's not what it is. You know what I mean? We maintaining that customer connection, that interaction, ensuring that people understand, exactly what it stands for, and then taking people on that journey is really important to us. So if it means that we've got to say no to be able to make sure that all our partnerships are correct. Well, it's easy to form more relationships, but it's not easy to form a brand.
I like that. How do you maintain that going forward? Because you run the risk of becoming a fashion label, right? And you don't want that. This is it's a movement, isn't it?
Yeah,
It is a movement, and I suppose how do we maintain that moving forward? It's a really good question, because we're learning that on the fly. You know, we know how much we've hit home with what we've built so far, but we're exploring different partnerships and relationships at the moment, and it's only that when we dive into some of those that we start to foresee some potential problems, right? And so learning on the fly and understanding what those problems are as they arrive and how we can potentially mitigate those in the future. Well, it's all a learning curve for us, but as long as our focus is understanding what we've built and cherishing that, at every step we take, and considering all avenues and everything that could or could not go wrong, well, that's how we maintain that brand integrity.
Dan, what have you found most difficult in starting and growing this business? And to you, Ed, as well.
Obviously, we're a mental health social enterprise. We're playing in a space that is so sensitive to so many people, right? So my biggest, to be brutally honest with you, that you got two sides of the business here. So Ed is obviously, heavily business and sales focused, and I'm on that other side of marketing, messaging, mental health, and that sort of branding. So I suppose really understanding why it is that we've made an impact and why it is that we've cut through to the market, understanding what we do well, but also understanding what lane we're in. We've learned a lot about mental health through this journey. And we don't want to just be another organisation that waves this flag and says, we've got to talk about it. It's always been self-reflecting, reassessing, looking at what's working, what's not working, and understanding where we're getting cut through, and always being open-minded enough to sort of evolve with the brand as it evolves as well. So, yeah.
Well, I even noticed only recently with the Are You OK movement, Are You OK Day. It's a great idea. It's a strong brand, and it sort of had a big impact very quickly. They're now gone into a second stage, which is saying, if someone says they're not okay, then what do you do? Or if someone says they are okay, what do you do? Because there's no use starting a conversation if you can't finish it, right? And I guess, again, that's part of your challenge.
Yeah, well, that's obviously why, it's so great that we've been able to launch, this is a Conversation Starter Foundation, or the TX Foundation as we call it, and it's sort of our, full circle and close circle approach in the fact that, our shirts are out there starting conversations on a daily basis, and there's a lot of people out there that, need that next step rather than just a peer-to-peer intervention. So, we've been able to provide instant free access to mental health professionals, psychologists, through our text and call service to the TX Foundation. And that's, been overwhelmingly successful so far. So it's been in market for about 3 months. We've had over 101 interactions as of Thursday last week, and it continues to grow. So it's, really exciting.
Let's talk marketing. How important is marketing to the success of TradeMutt?
Extremely important. It's like our bread and butter. Without that, we'd be nothing really.
But in saying that, we have also tripped and stumbled on, some marketing gold that we didn't intend to, it wasn't our intention, right? We've ended up being the face of this brand. Apparently we're relatable.
Somehow.
We've had some really good marketing lessons along the way, and we learned those lessons really early on, and we sort of started to understand what our strengths are, and where we lie, and so it's about honing in on that.
And
authenticity is key. Like we're not, because we're a face behind the brand, we've got nowhere to hide, and we're not interested in hiding. It speaks to our approach around transparency in our business. Authenticity always, and just being genuine and relatable.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's the most important thing is maintaining integrity and being genuine.
How have you become the face of your brand? Going through your shop, you're modelling all the clothes, amazing. Some of the moves you pull, boys. I think there might be a Magnum in there, or what was that move from Zoolander?
It's tidy, isn't it? It's tidy.
That's a blue steel.
It's a blue steel. Yeah. No. How else are you putting your face to the business?
Well, look, we've got a number of different avenues now. Obviously, we've started the business with social media heavy, so we've had some really strong growth across social media, and we like to give people not just we don't just like to try to sell stuff to people. We like to give people an insight into our business journey. I think we like to consider the fact that we're actually, not only are we standing up for mental health and creating cool products, but also taking people on a journey of a couple of tradies who have broken the mold and had a crack at a new business. And that speaks to the transparency piece, I suppose. We've also developed our own podcast, TradeMutt's 120 Grit, the podcast for the working class. So essentially that was born out of this notion that, we're out there promoting people to have the conversations, hard conversations. Well, we better be having these hard conversations too, and I suppose leading by example where we can. So we've had some awesome yarns with some real and relatable people, some well-known people as well, and really just sharing stories of different, challenges around mental health, resilience, overcoming adversity, and most importantly, lessons learned about actually travelling that road. As you say, we're the models.
On the podcast thing, as a podcaster, I love the fact that you've got a podcast. I think it's an awesome marketing channel. I've said it before, but more small business owners should do it. Can you quantify how it's impacted positively on your brand?
Oh, it's hard to say. We had a person message through the other day and say that her psychologist recommended her to listen to our podcast, which is unbelievable. So, that's been really good. But I suppose, we get a variety of different demographics and that tuning in and listening to our podcast, which is really good. It's not just age specific or gender specific. We get a very broad range of listeners, which is fantastic. And they get to listen to a broad range of guests, guys who are builders who have lost everything and rebuilt and started again. There's also, guys like Darren Lockyer and Greg Martin and their stories as well, which is, unbelievable.
One of the biggest ways I think that I can quantify the impact of the podcast is, and you'd probably understand this as well, when you sit in a room and you have a structured conversation that is being recorded, you think about your words, you think about your positioning, you start to talk about themes, you start to see themes develop. And it's a really good way of, we talk about the power of having open conversation. Well, when you practice those open conversations, you get better at talking, you get better at understanding what it is you're talking about, and you develop and you grow, you learn a lot from other people. So the podcast has been a great learning experience for us. And along that journey, we've also built a solid listener base, and we get some really good hits and some really good feedback on the podcast. So it's a kind of a double-pronged attack there.
What's the best marketing you do to create brand awareness, and what's the best marketing you do to generate direct sales? So for brand awareness, it's the shirts. That's the beautiful part. There's no other product in the market that is anything like what we've got. So every one of our customers is also our salesperson, because as soon as someone asks about them, they can only get it from one spot.
There's two other brand awareness pieces that I'll chuck in there. So obviously PR is fantastic, right? So we've done some pretty outlandish stuff to get on TV. We once locked ourselves in 2 portaloos in the middle of Queen Street Mall for 24 hours and made it on the Today Show twice. That was at a stage in our business where we thought, this might all fall over, and that generated, $50K in sales for us in 2 days.
Kept the lights on.
And another one for that is where we've also sung and recorded and filmed a video clip for our own song, our own film clip, which was a parody version of John Farnham's "You're the Voice," called "You've Got a Voice." So
check it out on YouTube, people.
So there's 2 examples of really putting yourself out there, in a quite outlandish way that generates a lot of that brand awareness, and not being too worried about what people think of you for doing that.
Definitely.
So.
Yeah, I love that. I haven't spoken to the last guest that talked about, he called it remarkable marketing. Seth Godin, who I've subsequently had on this show, said it wasn't remarkable marketing, but whatever. The guest a few years ago owned some Chick-fil-A franchises in America, and he would go and break Guinness Book of Records, largest iced tea, largest this, largest that, and get a heap of exposure for his business. I love the fact that you guys are doing something similar. They were early day ideas, locking yourself in the Portaloo, creating a film clip to Farnsey's song, "You're the Voice." Have you still got it in you to do that stuff? I hope you have.
Yeah, we definitely do. I suppose it just comes down to us at the moment with time. We're just so time poor at the moment.
But I get it. But that's kind of what I thought. Time busy, the busyness of business gets in the way and stops you from creating marketing that's actually, it's fun, it's effective, it's viral.
Yeah. And it's cheap too. You know, that sort of marketing is so cheap. You just got to be able to put yourself out there. I think the ability of not giving much of a damn about what people perceive of you is a very strong marketing tool.
Yep. Have you got an idea for the next one?
Oh, we're always coming up with very outlandish ideas. I mean, a day in the TradeMutt office is certainly not dull. And again, same like what Ed was talking about with different opportunities and ideas that people throw our way. Well, it's kind of the same thing on that side. There's so many different things we could do, but the stage of business where we're at is we're definitely not resting on our laurels, but we're at a comfortable stage where we've built a brand, and now our focus is really on growing our team and investing in our people so that we can get to that next stage where, we can free ourselves up more and then go and do this outlandish stuff. Because my word, we've definitely got it in us, and we're always going to be, a couple of larrikins who are going to have a crack and not too worried about what people think. The only thing that scares me is when we get to that point and we free ourselves up a bit, what that stunt is that we pull. I mean, it could be absolutely game-changing, so it's exciting.
I love it. Well, I really hope you do that because, again, it's just great marketing. Just to round up the marketing discussion, you are two busy blokes. You've got a team. Did you say there are 8 in the TradeMutt office at the moment?
Yeah, there's 8. Yep, 8 of us.
How do you manage marketing? Is one of you responsible for it? Do you have a marketing manager? What's that look like?
Yeah, got a director of marketing.
Director of marketing?
Director of marketing, yeah.
He gave himself
that title, yeah.
Right.
So Mike Watkins, he's great. He's been fantastic. He came into the business almost 12 months ago. We've been able to build that out to now have our e-commerce manager, Kate. We've got a community manager called Gemma. And, so Dan runs the social impact side.
Tell me about the community manager. What's Gemma's role? That's an interesting role.
So basically we've got quite a strong social media footprint, right? And we are just getting bombarded every day with awesome messages, comments. We've got a lot of social media posting out there that generates a lot of activity, and we really take it upon ourselves to acknowledge as many people as we possibly can, because that speaks to one of our brand pillars, and so that is time consuming. That is extremely time consuming, but really rewarding, and an investment into our business that, we'll never change that. I can safely say that we will never change our approach to connecting with our customers and consumers. People who take the time to reach out to us will always take the time to reach back. So
I think there's too many people that forget that. Yeah, far too many businesses.
Messages, comments, all sorts of things, emails, it's all coming through. So, managing that, it's something really important to us.
And you can see that, and I've had a look at your social media, and they're engaged, there's great conversations happening, which is what should be happening. And it's clearly that aspect of your brand, which is all about starting the conversation and the whole mental well-being versus you're just a shirt, you're just a work shirt, which is not, how much harder is that to create engagement and conversation around? So clearly that part of the brand is just so important.
It is, it's hugely important. It's something that, we will invest a lot of time and effort into, and it's what we'll continue to invest a lot of time and effort into as we expand, because it's only going to become more prevalent for us to, make social change there, but, also through our supply chain as well.
I mean, it's also something that we stumbled on, though. It's something that we didn't get in, to this business saying we're going to, we're going to reply to every message. We're going to lock ourselves in toilet, like all this stuff.
We definitely didn't have a plan.
We've picked up along the way. We've worked out early on what's working in our favour, and we've honed in on that.
What's the next big move? What's something that you're just dying to implement inside the business or the brand, but you're either too scared to or frustrated by the fact that you don't have enough resource to do it, time or money?
Oh, it's hard. I suppose one of the things would be, probably the next big thing for us is being able to get ourselves off the tools and be out more and be spreading the message further on a face-to-face level as well. So we've always had some outlandish ideas of getting a ute and setting it up with our podcast kit in the back and sort of driving from Brizzy down to Melbourne and
doing a tour
and having some chats, a lot of real life tradies and what they've been through and spreading the message that way. That's probably one big audacious thing we'd love to do.
Yeah, I mean, on my side of things as well, I suppose at the moment, we've established our own not-for-profit. So essentially we're, two entrepreneurs who are launching 2 businesses at the same time, albeit one as a charity. So, so we're sort of a bit off double at the moment. But, growing, my eyes at the moment are on, Christmas approaching and building out our not-for-profit capacity to be able to offer, solid mental health support to our community that need it over that Christmas period. And the only way that we can do that most effectively is on the TradeMutt side of things, scaling up. The more business we can generate, the more sales we can generate, well, then the more donations we make to our own charity, which means the more mental health professionals that we can fund to be working. So
exactly,
it's growing that together.
Dan and Ed, I think it's a fantastic story. One, very much in the making. I will be getting you boys back on in 2 or 3 years' time, because it's just going to be a whole. It'll be the same, but I imagine a whole lot different. And I just want to thank you on behalf of all business owners, really, and all human beings, actually, for just, again, contributing to the conversation and getting the conversation started around mental illness. I think it's massive, and well done to you two young blokes. And TradeMutt is where you'll find these blokes. TradeMutt with a T.com. Go and buy a high-vis shirt, even if you don't work on a building site, would be my advice. Thanks, fellas.
Thanks, mate. Appreciate it.
Good on you, Tim. Thanks so much for having us, mate.
Thanks, mate.
Hey, what a great couple of blokes. Seriously, even if high-vis wear isn't part of your everyday fashion routine, and it should be, go and buy one of their ridiculously vibrant tops and support the cause. They also make hoodies, caps, aprons, believe it or not, and skadoots. I didn't know what a skadoot was, but if you go to the TradeMutt website, you will see some very loud skadoots. TradeMutt.com is where you'll find them. Right, here's my top 3 attention grabbers from that chat with the boys. Attention grabber number 1. I love the way they're building the TradeMutt brand by always asking if what they're about to do fits in with their moral compass. A great criteria. Attention grabber number 2. I love that they're thinking about PR stunts. I reckon the idea of being locked inside a Portaloo in their CBD is a ripper. Speaking of big ideas, you would have listened to that Daniel Flynn episode by now and how he rolled the dice on a big idea. I really, really encourage you to think about how you can do that. Remember Daniel's tip around blue sky thinking once every couple of weeks? Do it. Attention grabber number 3. I just love the fact that they're bringing mental health to the fore. If you did just one thing as a result of this episode, could you please do that inside your business regularly? Don't wait for the next Are You OK day. That's next year. Do it today. Go and ask your staff, how you doing? How's your headspace? Are you coping? And introduce that conversation, that language into the business. It's important, team. That's what grabbed my attention. Whatever grabbed yours, give me a buzz on 0480 015 150. You got up to 5 minutes to leave me a message, ask me a question, a comment, be constructively critical, whatever you got. Leave a message and I might just play it on an upcoming episode.
Come on down. It's Timbo's Monster Prize Draw.
Yes, indeedly, doodly. It is time to reward another motivated listener of this podcast for taking some serious marketing action. And today's winner is ex-corporate lawyer turned digital marketing agency owner, George Koudanaris of Waves, that's WAYVES.com.au. It's a good email from George. A little long, but there's some good stuff in it around ideas that he's implemented. He says, Timbo, thank you so much for doing what you do. My pleasure, George. Despite having a natural love for marketing and learning SEO while studying law at university, well, you got a lot of time on your hands, I became a corporate lawyer working 80 to 90 hours a week and hated what I was doing. I reached my breaking point and found myself in tears in the shower at 3 a.m. after another late night doing something I wasn't passionate about. Oh, buddy, thank you for your honesty already, George. The inspiring stories on your podcast kept me going in this pretty tough time and gave me the courage to leave the legal world and follow my passion. Oh, I love hearing those words. I boned up at a leading independent marketing agency for a few years and now run my own business, helping small and medium-sized businesses take action and create helpful marketing. I've written a book about that. It's called The Boomerang Effect. Back to George. I've worked my way through your back catalogue, and I hope you don't mind, but I use the ideas from the show for my clients and my own business. Of course I don't mind. That's why I do the show. Here's just a few nuggets of gold that I've implemented, Timbo. Using geo-targeting, highly tailored Facebook ads to make a small business seem really big to the right people. I like that. And turning this into fantastic leads, one of which was an ASX-listed company. I've tested some local SEO tips from Dana Tomasio. She was the SEO expert from last year or the year before, which gave one of my clients more visibility and led to them getting a lead worth $1 million. I took a leaf out of Stu Hennicke's playbook and sent a personalised gift to someone who could potentially refer some work to us. This worked, and I won a client out of it. Getting each of my clients to answer the top queries for their industry in the form of a short video, I should say, which can then be transcribed and turned into blog posts. There's plenty more, but these are just a few that come to mind, Timbo. I'm the guy that actually takes other people's phones and makes them download your podcast. Thank you, George. Thank you again, Timbo. You've done so much for people, more than you could ever know. Cheers, George of waves.com.au. George, for that wonderful email, you get a full range of Liars non-alcoholic spirits valued at over $500, vouchers to buy Sendal services, Torsion Bar, and some tradies undies, promotion on this show, and a backlink in the show notes. Everyone else, please start taking some serious marketing action. Well, that is nearly it, team. If you'd like to keep the conversation going, be sure to join the Small Business Big Marketing Tribe over on Facebook. We've currently got over 700 members sharing ideas, holding each other accountable, and having some great conversations around marketing. Next week, we catch up with third-generation chocolate store owner Johnny Capos, or Chocolate Johnny, as he likes to call himself, who's using social media and in particular live streaming to grow his very traditional chocolate shop. If you've got something to tell me, then give me a buzz, 0480 015 150. Please let other business owners know about the Small Business Big Marketing podcast, which is presented by me, Timbo Reid. Until next time, thanks for tuning in. May your marketing be the absolute best marketing. Bye for now.